thing on the agenda today is existing DevNet updates. Could we start with maybe Barnabas and then Stefan?
Sure. So EPBS on its own has been broken basically from the get-go. We've been trying to recover it without much success. Since then, there has been some progress on EPBS development, and we're going to have a breakout where we're going to be deciding whether we're going to be changing the beacon state to make it a bit more simpler. And then with that change, we would be just relaunching DevNet 2.
Okay. I guess there'll be more on that topic in the breakout room. But in the meantime, Stefan, do you want to give an update on block level access lists?
Yeah, sure. So we launched DevNet 3 on Wednesday, and it went decently well. And then once I turned on some transactions, we saw first Nethermind fork away, and then it seemed that Geth had a disagreement with a lot of the clients, and it might be related to also this issue that I raised against the EIP. So it seems that if there isn't enough gas left, state gas left in the reservoir, it tries to take it from gas left, and then there seems to be a discrepancy in how that is treated. Some are using the gas from gas left as regular gas, and some are using it as state gas. Geth, I think, used it as state gas, and all the other clients considered it as regular gas. So I think it would be good to get an understanding here. Maybe this clarification to the EIP is enough, and we should figure out in the breakout call what is the right behavior. I think also Marius found some other issues. Yeah, I think Spencer also mentioned something regarding how we best approach fixing some parts for BalDevNet 3 and then going on to BalDevNet 4.
For the 8037 topics, should we discuss it now already, or is it more appropriate in the breakout room section?
I think the breakout would be good for it.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, and
here,
yeah. And I also created a spec sheet for BalDevNet 4. I'm not too opinionated on how much we should still be putting work into BalDevNet 3. And when we should make the cut up for BalDevNet 4, I think that's something we can discuss also in the breakout room. I think.
But what are the major changes between the two?
So there are, I think, 5 issues, and I think 2 or 3 of them that are referenced as the open spec decision kind of issues in the BalDevNet spec. I think 2 or 3, what Spencer said, we can already include and iterate on in BalDevNet 3. And 2 of them would require too much change, and they should land in BalDevNet 4. Maybe Spencer, if you would like to add something to that, your reasoning.
Yeah, hey guys, I think it would be nice to basically a lot of what we have now for DevNet 3, there are open questions, and I think yeah, Maria posted this open questions doc. I can maybe link it here, and I think points 3 to 6 right now, as far as I understand, and all of the clients are in consensus with EELS and the spec for 3 to 6. So my feeling is that 3 to 6, we just need to add the spec clarifications to the EIP text. And then we'll add tests for that. And then it means that DevNet 3, the spec is the same. The EIP text has just been updated and we have tests for everything. And then for DevNet 4, we actually focus on things that will actually modify the spec and change the tests, including adding the dynamic cost per state byte for 8037. But we can chat more about this in the breakout rooms.
Yeah, Maria?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a point. So I do think we need to discuss also points 3 to 6 in my doc. So I think Spencer said it's true, like the current science and the spec are aligned, but I don't think I'm fully convinced that the current design is the right design. So I think definitely we'll need to have a discussion on this. And if we figure out that we should go with the design that is not currently implemented, then this would be a bigger change. And so we may need to include it in Ball DevNet 4. But yeah, I agree that we should have a longer discussion on this during the breakout.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fair. Sorry, go ahead.
And apart from the discussions on 8037, I would propose adding 7976 and 7981 as something that we can discuss about adding to our DevNet 4.
Yeah, Ben?
I'd like to add 2780 to that list, because since it affects every single transaction, it would be good to get sight of it early.
Sorry, could you describe 2780 again?
Dropping the base transaction gas.
Got it. Maybe we can talk briefly about timelines for the two DevNets. So when is PAL DevNet 4 meant to be launched? And would it be able to accommodate such change?
Regarding the timeline, it would be nice if we could launch it before interop. So regarding a date, I think the latest I'd want to launch it would be on the 29th of April. And I think 27, what was it, 80, would take, I think, considerably more time to add.
Yeah. Ben, what do you think? What's the implementation complexity like?
I don't know if it's too hard, but I mean, it would have potentially a significant effect on the tests if they're assuming certain gas.
Yeah, Dan?
Hey everyone, yeah, Guru already put a PR for execution spec up for 2780 and already added quite a lot of new tests for it. And yeah, but Ben's right, like there are quite a few updates for the older tests as well required. I think most of it's in place, at least from the spec side. It's pretty ready to go, barring edge cases, of course.
Okay, let's do Maria and then Tony.
So maybe this is related to what Tony wants to say, but he asked about the fact that 2780 is still waiting on benchmarks. So to give some context there, what this EIP is doing is it's breaking down the current intrinsic cost of a transaction into its various components. And some of those components are state access related components. They are like read of an account or read of an account with codes, these sort of things. And it's true that we still don't have final numbers on those. So those parameters essentially will be updated once we have the final numbers for the state access EIP, which is the 8038. But this doesn't mean that we could potentially start working on the implementation of the logic of breaking out these components. And then essentially we will be just changing the parameters values once we have them. And so I think we could, in principle, start implementing 2780 before having the final numbers, because most of the work will be in this logic of breaking out like the intrinsic cost into its various components.
Yeah, Tony and then Spencer.
Yeah, I very much agree with what Maria just said. Basically wanted to bring up something very similarly. One thing we must also consider is that 2780 currently, for example, the cost to call an EOA, so an account with no code, is so cheap that it would introduce a new worst case block size, which is something we should also reconsider. Like there is no use case for calling EOAs so cheaply. And this is because there are different costs for calling accounts with code versus without code. Yeah, I would just echo what Stefan said. The data EAPs are rather small and very much contained, so I think they can be added. I'm not sure if we can make it until interop with 2780, especially because there's still some work to do with 8037.
Yeah, that's fair. Spencer, do you want to add to the same topic, or is it a different one?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, like maybe we could circle back to this question next Monday. I think we could, at least on the test side, see if there are any major conflicts with 8037. And then if there are too many, then we can maybe push it to a later DevNet. But if it seems like it's feasible, then we could consider adding it.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me. Ben, would you be able to work on the implementation side so we can also get a grasp on how difficult it would be? So then we would have a better understanding of testing, we'd have a better understanding of implementation, and we can take a call next week. But currently, yeah, I think I'm leaning towards fewer EIPs and more stability, at least going into the interop event.
Sure.
Awesome. Yeah, also just echoing Barnabas's comment, currently at least prefer a stable base that we can discuss on at interop. So this can be an active discussion topic for when we're in person, but we don't want to block other progress on it. Great. So we have a timeline for BAL DevNet 4. Yeah, Tony?
Can we quickly take a final decision on 7976 and 7981, the two data EAPs?
Sorry. I would assume that if they're small enough and it is a non-controversial change, that we include them for BAL DevNet 4. Is that a reasonable path forward?
Yes, I would say so. So just to summarize, there was, I think it was, they were very high ranked at the client priors originally. Then the survey that Buddha did also showed that the ecosystem has no concerns with them or very minimal concerns. And it would be nice to just be able to test what the maximum block size will be, especially now that we're adding block level access lists too.
Yeah, that's fair. Yes, let's include the two in BAL DevNet 4. And as Stefan said, let's aim for before interop, assuming that we will have some delays and we can at latest get it running during interop. Yeah, any other comments for block level access list DevNet 4? Cool. Do we want to discuss EPBS DevNet 2, or is that reliant on the breakout room decision?
Yeah, we need to go to the breakout for that.
Okay, cool. It feels like there's a lot to discuss today and more relevant breakout room related stuff. So if there's, I'm just going to ask for as a last call for any shared room discussions. If not, we'd yield more time to the breakout today. Yeah, Putus?
I'm not sure if I am audible. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. So yeah, so there's something that is contentious to contingent to the breakout, but anyways, I'd like to ask here because we'll need some ELDATs. There is a proposal to change something in EPBS that would allow us to actually sync, range sync, without requesting payloads at all. And yeah, so I'd like to have a discussion about that.
Okay, then I would propose that we do this right now, because at least on the order of things, I think figuring out this topic is higher than AD37 changes. So yeah, you have the floor, POTUS. Do you want to give context and then let's
Yeah, I can
let's hear it.
quickly describe what the situation is. Today, when we do range sync, there are essentially two scenarios. Let's say that you'd spin up a node and you want to sync over the last 5 days of blocks. And your finalized checkpoint happened just 1 day ago. So you have 4 days of finalized blocks that you're going to sync over, and then 1 day of something where the chain hasn't finalized. We start from our previous head or our previous finalized checkpoint, whatever it is, and we start requesting all blocks by range. We get both blocks and payloads because the payload is now included within the block. We do the state transition on the consensus layer, and well, clients here differ on what they do. Some clients validate the block hash themselves. Other clients like Prism would send the new payload to the EL, and the EL would validate the block hash and return syncing, or if it actually manages to sync it, it will just return valid. And we advance this way. However, there is a proposed change on EPBS that, I mean, of course, now with the current GLOA spec, we can do the same sort of syncing. It's just that now the payload comes in the envelope. So we request by range the blocks and by range the payload. Then the CL is in charge of interleaving them, finding out which payloads actually became canonical, and then you sync them one by one. You do the state transition for the consensus block, and then you do the state transition for the payload, and so forth. And then you do the new payload again. The proposal for changing EPBS will remove the state transition from the payload. That means that the CL can actually do all of the state transition without ever knowing that the payload, well, knowing that the payload was there, but without ever validating the payload, without ever validating the block hash. And that's where my question lands. What happens if you range sync without requesting payloads for all the finalized section, and we do all of the state transitions on the CL? We assume that the block hash chain was fine on the EL, and then we just send an FCU or a new payload and start sending new payloads only on the unfinalized section. Will this make a client that just is starting out possibly sync through a finalized invalid block? I suspect yes.
Is there some EL dev who'd be willing to speak up for this?
Do you mean will we jump ahead too far ahead and not have anything behind to reorg to?
I don't mean anything because I don't know how you guys think. I suspect that you're going to start downloading a snapshot, and that snapshot could be based on an already finalized state that already includes an invalid block.
Yeah, Lukasz?
So I remember having this discussion with Peter Szilagi at some point, that when we are doing snap sync, so when we are firstly getting, so let me maybe describe, this is the scenario when you need to catch up to the chain, like you have a stale node and this range sync is when you're catching up, right? It's not the first sync.
Correct.
So currently Nethermind will replay all the blocks. So if we in this long chain there will be an invalid block, we will catch that.
But how do you get those blocks?
We will get it from the network.
So you get them yourself?
Yes. Yes, we will get them ourselves from the network. If you want, pass them to us and you will go forward. We will request them from the network and we will replay all of them. But potentially clients could redo the healing phase, for example, of SnapSync, and or okay, if we will have balls, we will just do balls. So that's also not a big deal. But balls will be only available for some time. We are discussing how long. So I think it will be at least a few weeks, but we'll see. So yeah, there are like multiple ways of doing that, and some of them could potentially not detect that the block was invalid, I think. We will trust kind of that you say it's finalized, so we might not validate it. Currently, we'll definitely Nevermind will definitely validate it, and I think most of the clients will, if not all. But I'm not. I'm starting to think what will happen with balls, and I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I actually wanted to ask you, Lucas, are you guys checking consensus state on the things that you are resyncing? Because we do something similar where we do a backward sync, we follow the hashes all the way back, and then we replay them forward, but we don't check the CL in any way, so we have no notion of like whether things have been finalized or not.
Well, we don't check CL, but we are replaying the blocks, so if the block will fail, we won't accept it, right?
The CL should be fine here. We check the consensus side on our own. The problem is if you guys, if the question is, should we actually force ourselves to check the block hash to avoid sending you blocks, or can we even avoid that, even the check for the block hash itself?
What do you mean checking the block hash? I'm not
Well, if we say that we have a chain of blocks that we want to sync, we will perform the state transition on the consensus layer. And this state transition would include the consensus block would say, my latest block hash was this. I am building on top of this execution payload that has this particular block hash. We can check that the promise of those block hash chains is actually, well, we can check that this block hash is based on the parent block hash and so forth, but these are all promises. We are not actually doing the hash on the RRP of the payload because we don't even have the payload. In principle, it could be that one of these payloads was invalid, that its block hash was not what it promised it to be, and we wouldn't even find out if we actually didn't request the payload to check that the block hash was what it promised to be.
Okay, so you potentially will give us the block hash that is invalid, so we might not be able to find it in the network in the first place.
Correct.
So then we'll kind of be stuck by not finding it in the network because we cannot validate something we cannot even obtain.
That's fine, but then that means that you always will try to get all blocks and connect to a chain that you know, and all clients would do this, so there's no snap syncing from a particular state and taking that state as finalized and valid and continue from there.
Generally, that was the consensus when we were doing the merge, that if we once snap sync, we won't snap sync again, right? So we do that snap syncing at the initial sync, right, of the chain, but that's what we have to do.
Enrico?
But again, I'm not sure how I haven't really thought how it will be working with balls, so I'm not entirely sure here.
I was just to add the question, is this a situation that is definitely not new? Because you cannot assume that your EL you are using is in sync. You can somehow swap or wipe out the database of your EL, and then anyway your EL needs to start syncing while CL is still following the chain and optimistically. So the EL needs to anyway find out the blocks and replay everything.
Yeah, but the thing is that when we sync optimistically, we actually have the payload, and we either verify the block hash ourselves, and then we avoid to send that payload.
I mean,
or we rely on the EL to send in us the syncing reply. My question is, can we do this without ever touching a payload? And then trusting that the EL is going to get those payloads on their own?
I think so. I think yes. But again, we can get stuck if we won't be able to find those payloads in the network, for example, right? So there are situations where we could get stuck.
That's absolutely fine. I mean, getting stuck is not my problem. My problem is if I make Prism never to request a payload, am I risking someone that follows the chain to actually say that a block that is invalid be invalid? So that's my only fear. And I really want to use this feature because it's something completely new that we can actually range sync. It's very fast. It's going to be, it's in my mind, this is a game changer. The fact that we can actually range sync without ever touching a payload. It's much faster to catch up.
So in my opinion, you should be fine, but yeah, I'm happy to hear others' opinions.
Enrico?
Sorry, it was remaining up, but yeah.
Okay.
Seems like it.
Do you feel like you got your answer, Potus?
It seems that Nethermind says that it's fine. Thanks, Lucas. But I'd like to have it here. It's on the record. I'd like to get an okay from other EL devs,
Yeah.
or at least have a validation of this.
Yeah, Tony?
Yeah, it would be nice, POTUS, if you could document that somehow in written form. I would also like to look into it.
Yeah, yeah, I think we'll get it in writing and then have all the ELs hack it. Okay, cool. That being said, any other general topics we need to discuss with everyone before breakout rooms? Okay, then I will create them.
All right, can you make Mark and David co-host so they can record these sessions?
Yeah, 1 second, sorry. Give me a second.